Hello and welcome. Over the next couple weeks here in reality, but what will be just a few minutes for you, I'm going to show you how you can take a sweater that you love the fit of and construct your own garment using those measurements. So this is a sweater I've had for a couple years. I wear it all the time. It's kind of like a poncho style sweater, which means that the lines are going to be very easy for me to replicate. It's got ribbing here on the neckline. It's got some ribbing here at the bottom. It's kind of loose. So I'm going to start by taking some measurements and then showing you how I'm going to create my very own sweater using those measurements. Okay, so now that it's on a flat surface, we're going to take some measurements. Instead of measuring from the bottom of the garment, I'm actually measuring from the bottom of the top before the ribbing starts, because I'm going to be doing the ribbing at the end. So I've got a measurement of 22 inches from the bottom of the garment before the ribbing to the top of the shoulder. I'm also going to be measuring my armhole depth over here, the length of my ribbing, the length of the sleeve. I probably won't do such a long sleeve. I'm going to go for something a little bit more summery, a little bit more lighter weight. And then I'm also going to measure how deep the V-neck is. And once I have all those measurements, I will show you how I'm going to get started. All right, now that I have all of the measurements that I need, including the length of the top, the width of the top, the neck hole measurements, the ribbing here on the neck and the ribbing at the bottom, I decided not to do a measurement of the ribbing on the sleeve because I'm just going to use the same measurement that I did for the bottom. But now that I've got all of those, this is the yarn that I have been dying to use for this project. I haven't used it before, and I'm honestly not sure how long it stays around at Joann's. This is K+C Knit and Crochet, the Essential Cotton, and it is a DK weight, I believe. Yes, which it's so soft. And I have a bunch of this cream color, and then I have one that's variegated, so I might do that for the ribbing. Or maybe I'll do kind of like a retro stripe across the top. We'll see. But I'm going to be using a DK cotton. And then I've decided to use Tunisian crochet for this project. So I'm using a K 10.5 hook, which is a 6.5 millimeter to get a great drape. And I will check in back with you later. Hello, I've gotten so much done since the last time that we talked. I have the entire back panel finished, as well as almost done with the front panel. So for this Copycat sweater, I'm using measurements that I took from a sweater that I already liked the fit of in my closet. I knew that I needed a 22-inch length from the top to the bottom of the piece. I need a 3-inch bottom and sleeve ribbing, an 8.5-inch V-neck depth, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and then a 6.5-inch armhole, which will come in when we do the seaming, and then 28-inch width, and then a 1.5-inch neck ribbing. For this garment, I am using the Tunisian Simple Stitch. I am using K+C, there we go so you can see it, from Joann. I love this cotton. It's their Essential Cotton in the color cream. It took 2 skeins of that to do this back panel, where I did 77 stitches for the width that I needed. And then for the front panel, which I'm about to show you, I did the same amount of stitches for the width, and then I'm just not going to do as many rows for the length. So because I need an 8.5-inch depth for my V-neck, I only needed to do 13.5 inches of length before I split for that V-neck. And that's about where I am right now. And because I did 77 stitches across, I wanted to have an odd number so that when I do the V-neck, I'm going to be doing 39 stitches to the center. 38.5 is exactly half of 77. So 39 stitches to the center means that the center stitch will be shared by both sides of the V-neck, which we'll get into here in a minute. So for my front panel, I have just finished about 13 inches. I guess I can just move the back panel out of the way. I have done about 13 inches of work so far. I love the drape of this. I'm using a size K, which is a 6.5 millimeter Tunisian hook. for a level 3, a DK weight of yarn, and it's giving a beautiful drape. So if you're not familiar with Tunisian simple stitch, again, you could use any stitch that you want if you were doing a copycat sweater like this, as long as it's something that is a good all over stitch if you're doing it in panels like I am. So for the Tunisian simple stitch, I'm going to bring it up a little bit so you can see a little better. We're going to be working into the bars of the stitch. In traditional crochet, you work in the top. In Tunisian, you usually work in the bars. So I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then keep it on my hook all the way down. There are lots of really great tutorials for Tunisian simple stitch. TL Yarn Crafts is great. I actually have a Tunisian two-tone cowl tutorial here on YouTube that also shows you how to do this with 2 colors so that you get a kind of a houndstooth effect. But since this is the last row that I need to do for the front panel, we're just going to go all the way across, and then we'll do our forward pass, and I will meet you right back here when we're finished. All right, I'm ready to do let me go back one more, the decreases that we'll be using for our V-neck. So I've done my first row where I go all the way down to 39 stitches here, do the return pass, and then I'm now coming forward to do the next forward pass. So I've done most of my stitches and I have 3 left. So the third and the second from the last stitch, I'm actually going to be doing together. So usually I would insert my hook under a loop and just pull it up from there, but since I'm doing 2 together, I'm doing it, I'm inserting 2 loops right here, yarning over, and then pulling them together. And then now I'm going to do my last stitch. For the last stitch, you kind of go in through the side to give you a nice clean edge, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, and then pull through 2 all the way down. I tried it actually on my first take of this, where I did my decreases, do a couple more stitches so I can have some room, where I did my decrease into the second to last stitch and the last stitch together, and it just looked a little bit funky. It didn't lay as nicely, so that is why I'm doing it again. But for all the rest of these rows, as we go from this point to the length that we need for our V-neck, which for me is 8.5 inches, I'm going to be doing the same thing. So on the side where I start my row, I am not doing any decreases. I'm doing that the same way that I've done it for the whole project. But when I get to the end of my row on the forward pass, I will do 2 stitches together, or I'll Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, and the third and the second from the last stitch, and then I will do the last stitch regularly. And then I will meet you back here after I've done some more of that. I'm back and I have finished the right side of the V-neck panel. So one of the things that I really liked about how this came out is it's kind of like this eyelet detail where you can see all the little places where I did 2 stitches together. I think that's going to look really pretty. Because it is, there was a lot of area we needed to cover for that 8.5 inches. Again, for my size, for the sweater I'm copying, we have a pretty dramatic difference between how many stitches we have left and how many we started with. And while this will probably look like an extremely deep V-neck once I seam everything together and put it together, remember that we are going to have a ribbing that goes along the middle, and that'll help fill in some of that space. One of the other things that I found was really helpful in measuring how far I had gone, since at the end of the row, or I should say, like when I bound off here to figure out how far up to measure, I just put a little stitch marker on the row that I started with and measured from the straight side, and that was a lot easier. For the second side, it'll be even simpler because I can just do the same thing that I did the first time, with decreasing once every row, and then just count until I have this many stitches left over. In fact, I will have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 stitches starting from 39. So that is a pretty significant difference between how many we started with and how many we ended with. I also did a slip stitch bind off up here at the top. Again, depending on what stitch you're using, if you're doing traditional crochet or Tunisian, your ending will be a little bit different. I also left a tail because I'm going to be seaming this to the back panel. Now that I've done all of that talking, let's get started on the second side. So I've got my yarn right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull out a little bit of it. I'm going to be inserting my hook into the same stitch. Remember, I went over 39 stitches of my 77, knowing that the center stitch would be shared by both sides. So I'm going to insert my hook here, leaving myself a little tail. I'll tie that in later. And then for the first row, pull it down a little bit, it's the same as normal. So I'm just going to go all the way to the end, and then I will do my return pass coming right back here. All right, I've done my first forward and return pass, and I'm ready to start the decreases on the left side of my top. So if you recall, when we did the first side, when we did the right side, we went all the way into the end, except for the last 3 stitches. We did the second and third together, and then we did the last stitch normally. We're gonna do a very similar thing on this side. So the first stitch right here is already started with the loop that's still on my hook. That's the way that Tunisian always works. So I'm not actually doing anything different from my first stitch. So I'm going to take my second and my third stitch going forward. So the first or the second and third stitch of my row, and do those 2 together. And then the rest of my row will be the same as normal. It's basically just doing the mirror image of what we did on the right side panel, where we were decreasing at the end of the row. This time we're decreasing at the beginning of the row to make that mirror edged V neck. So I will see you right back here after I have finished this side, and then we'll talk about seaming. I'm back and everything is all seamed up. So I've got my side seams done here, and then I seamed the 2 tops together. The way that I did this is I did the mattress stitch seam. I really like it for a nice clean edge, and you can even do it with the 2 right sides facing together, and then it just looks nice and seamless. I did make one change when I was doing the armhole. So originally I've got a 6.5 inch armhole depth. I marked it with a stitch marker and then tried on the top before sewing it up because it looked really small and it was far too small. So I think that the discrepancy here between this sweater and the Copycat sweater is that the original sweater hangs lower on my arm. So that 6.5 inch armhole is fine because it's lower. However, on this one, it's a little higher on the arm. So I actually made that 10 inches deep, and that fit perfectly. Everything else worked out fine. Like I said, just seamed the top and the sides. And now I'm going to do the ribbing. I did try this on, and this is a pretty deep V, probably deeper than I would normally wear. But again, once I do the ribbing, that's going to fill in some of that. I've decided that I'm doing an all cream top. So I've got some more of this, and I will maybe do some embroidery after it's done. I don't know. I'll have to decide if I need a simple piece or a little bit jazzier of a piece. Next up is ribbing, and I'm going to show you how we do that on the bottom hem. So to start the bottom ribbing on the Copycat sweater, I did a row of single crochet around the whole thing. That just helped keep all of the rolling to a minimum that you get with Tunisian, as well as giving me a clean line to start with. I also went down a hook size to a traditional crochet hook instead of a Tunisian hook. Usually with Tunisian, you want to go up a couple of hook sizes for the yarn that you're using. So for DK, I usually use an H hook, which is a 5mm hook, and that's what I'm doing here. So I did all of my single crochet. I'm about to finish this round, so I'm going to place a single crochet right there, and then I'm going to put a slip stitch to connect my round. Now, because I want the ribbing to be 3 inches tall with this applied ribbing, I'm going to chain enough stitches for a 3-inch ribbing. So let's see how far off that is. My handy dandy tape measure right here. Wouldn't it be awesome if I got it perfectly right on? I mean, that was pretty close. So yeah, I think I have 2 extra stitches. Just gonna take one of those off. And let's see, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches. I'm gonna put that over here in my notes, that for the bottom and sleeve ribbing requires 12 chains. So I'm now going to be working the ribbing back and forth this way. So for the first row, I'm going to skip the first chain, single crochet my way down towards the bottom of my sweater, placing 1 stitch in each chain all the way down. Just a couple more to go. It's honestly kind of funny to readjust my hands after doing so much Tunisian to switch back to traditional crochet, which is what I do the majority of the time. All right, so now I've got one more stitch right there. I've now placed a stitch in all of the chains all the way down. I'm going to put a slip stitch into this chain, the bottom of my work. I'm going to do that for the next one up. And then I'm going to turn my work. So as I'm moving my way down, I'm going to single crochet just in the stitches of the ribbing, not the 2 I just slipped. And I'm going to do that in the back loop only. That'll give a nice ribbed effect. Theoretically, it will also be easier to work in this as opposed to the starting chain. And it does get a little easier the more that you do it. She says as the cotton yarn slides off the metal hook again and again. You can kind of see that detail that you're gonna get right there, the rib. You're gonna go all the way to the end. Now, depending on how you like your ribbing, you can end your row one of 2 ways. For me, I have found that not doing a turning chain actually gives me a cleaner ribbing, so I'm not going to do a turning chain. I found it kind of like bows it out a little bit. So I'm just going to turn my work, no turning chain. I'm going to do the same thing going back this way. So I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only, and then once I get to the end of the row, I'm going to slip stitch 2 up on the bottom body of my sweater. And there's the end of my row. So this was the last one that I slipped last time, so I'm going to come in from the top, slip that one, come in from the top, slip the next one, and then do the same thing over again. You can kind of see the texture right there. I will meet you back here after I've done all of the ribbing on everything except for the neckline. Okay guys, I got a ton of work done yesterday with the ribbing. So I did all of the bottom ribbing. Show it to you so you can kind of see. Doesn't that look good? And then I also did both sleeves ribbing. Now, if we compare it to the original sweater, that ribbing was a lot wider, but I said from the beginning that I would just do the same ribbing for the bottom as on the sleeves, and I really like the way that it looks for a summery top. But I have the original sweater with me here to talk about the neckline. So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this sweater was for this fold over neckline. And this particular top, I don't know how I'm just noticing this now, but they kind of have it squared off here on the bottom, whereas on mine, I just did a V-neck. However, I did the single crochet row all the way around. It actually helped kind of close up this side's eyelets. And then I'm going to be doing the ribbing half as wide as I did for the sleeves, because I need 1.5 inches for the middle of the ribbing. So I'm going to go all the way around, and then when I get to the middle, also this side down, and then also the other side down on top of it. So that is how I'm going to be doing that, and I will show you everything once I've done all of it and it's all done. And it is all done. I absolutely love the way that this came out. You can see this little fold over detail there. And since it was an all cream top, I decided it was a little bit more me if I added some embroidery over here. It's so easy to do on a Tunisian top. And I absolutely love it. I love the fit of it. I want to make more. It took me, I think, 5 skeins of the K+C cotton, which is a DK weight cotton, to do both panels and all the ribbing. And then this was just scrap yarn that I already had. So I'll put the details of the yardage that I used down below, but I absolutely love it, and I think it came out great. If you make a copycat sweater, let me know, because I think I'm going to do a lot more of these. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.